Welcome to the AmericanaMusic.com podcast with your host, Sarah Popejoy.
Today on AmericanaMusic.com, we have the pleasure of interviewing Ramona Martinez from Ramona and the Holy Smokes. With Texas roots based out of Virginia, their music contains memorable lyrics, steel guitar licks, and a toe-tapping beat that is reminiscent of 50s and 60s country music hits by artists like Buck Owens and Patsy Cline. Their debut self-titled album, Ramona and the Holy Smokes, releases September 26th. We're excited to have Ramona Martinez on our show. Welcome, Ramona.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Well, thank you for being here. Ramona, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually grew up overseas most of my life. My mom worked for the State Department. And so I was actually born in Helsinki, Finland, where I only lived for 2 weeks. And then we lived in Russia, Mexico, Brunei, Australia, Japan, all before I was 16. I did live in America briefly, like 4th through 6th grade, and then 10th grade on, of course. But basically, I sort of grew up with American culture from afar. I spent a lot of time on military bases and embassy compounds, and my parents, there was like a lot of Turner Classic movies on in my house. And so I feel like I got an interesting sense of American culture not being within it.
That's interesting. Who were some of your musical influences growing up, and who were some of your influences for this album?
I think this question is answered in 2 parts. The first part I'm going to say is that the boys in the band, the Holy Smokes, Kyle Lawton Kilduff, Brooks Hefner, Porter Brawley, and Jay Oipron, all brought their own musical influences to how the album sounds, especially with their appreciation and knowledge of classic country music. When I talk about the songs that I write, it's, I kind of make the skeleton or the soul and the skeleton perhaps of the song, and the boys add the muscle on top of it. And so it's definitely collaborative in that sense. The boys love Waylon, they love Merle Haggard, all these great country artists of kind of like the late 60s, early 70s. I really didn't have a good sense of before I started playing in this band. But I did spend time working in radio, and I did host a country music show. It was like bluegrass country, western swing, old time blues, basically anything Americana related. And I played music from like the 20s to the 80s. And so I feel like I got a really deep and wide education in country music, but not until I was an adult. And my favorites, and I think like who most influences me, are the honky tonk artists of the 50s specifically, like Hank Williams, Lefty Frizzell, early Patsy Cline, more like edgy, but somehow still like mid-century 50s classic style. And then as far as songwriting goes, there is one honorable mention that I want to always bring up. Stephen Merritt of the Magnetic Fields, the computer science teacher, gave me 69 love songs when I was maybe like 13 or 14, and it just blew my little mind. Like I could not get over the structure of the songs, how clever they were, how sort of self-effacing but honest. It really just shaped how I approach my songwriting.
Your band, the Holy Smokes, are a huge part of your sound. How did that develop? You guys sound perfect together. How did you meet?
The Holy Smokes have existed as a band for about 3 years. I started writing music in a frenzy back in 2021 and had a solo show at the end of the year. And at that time, I was already sort of playing with a electric guitar player named Blake Baines, who actually sings harmony on this album, even though he's no longer in the band. He has a wonderful voice, and we loved singing together. So I did a solo show, and Brooks Hefner, a pedal steel player, was at that show and reached out to me on Instagram after and said, hey, I was at the show. I loved it. If you ever want a pedal steel player to back you on any of your songs, let me know. And it's not every day you get an offer from a pedal steel player to start a band. So that was sort of the beginning of, we found a bass player and a drummer, and we were off to the races. Porter Brawley on drums and Jay Oipron are the most recent members of the band. They joined maybe a year and a half ago. And so it's been the 5 of us together for a while now. And we've really, really been working so hard. Last year, I played 139 shows.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so we've played hundreds of shows together. It's really cool because I don't think we sound like we're trying to be a band from the 50s or 60s. We definitely have kind of just like this alchemical thing going on of the boys all write their own parts. We all collaborate on the arrangements. There's just something really special with this band. I'm so blessed to to have them all come into my life and work so hard towards our shared goals.
That's really cool. Hopefully this doesn't feel like I'm too much on my pedestal or whatever, but at some point along the way during this century, country music Nashville execs decided that kind of positive, upbeat songs about trucks and their girl would sell better. I'm not trying to diss country music, but I'm just kind of trying to talk about how country music always wasn't like it is now. All the radio was playing for a good while, and all they really wanted, and the bro country with the bro country movement and everything like that. And I believe that during that time, they really misunderstood that prior to that, country had always been about real life, which includes the ups and the downs. And it's about storytelling and relatability on emotional level and on a life level. I'm someone who grew up with country music my whole life. But Ramona, what's great about this album, Ramona and the Holy Smokes, is that it not only captures the musical essence of the 50s and the 60s, but the emotional and lyrical quality from that time period. That's one of the things I really noticed. You definitely set out with intention on this album. I mean, whether it was by happenstance or, either way. Can you talk a little bit about where the vision for this album stemmed from?
Thank you for saying that. I think one of the things I really appreciate about country music is when it's done right, it's sincere. It doesn't matter like what you're singing about, but if you do it with sincerity, like that is something that I don't know, it's like a quality that like separates the wheat from the chaff. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's not something that you can plan. It's just kind of like you have to be probably just willing to be super honest, I guess. I don't know. And to tell you the truth, when I started writing music again, and I say again because I wrote a little bit when I was 16, but I wrote 10 songs and I didn't really have much to talk about at that point in my life. I think to write country music, really suffer for a little bit,
Right.
Like let life have its way with you and then you can write good country music. I didn't intend to write country songs. It just kind of happened, like the 3 chords and the truth kind of thing. And maybe it was because I had been doing this DJing, which was almost basically 8 years before I started writing music. Since the end of my country music show and writing this new wave of songs, I feel like if you write simple lyrics that are sincere and you only know cowboy chords like D, G, and A and B and E and B7, it's pretty inevitable. But I think I'm trying to stretch myself a little bit more. I write mostly through melody, and melody and lyrics come to me at the same time. And it's pretty determined, to be honest with you, like downloads from a group I call the Honky Tonk Angels, who just will put these songs in my head if I'm open and receptive to it. And it doesn't happen as frequently now. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. I feel like I've been yammering for a while. But
Okay, wait. So when you say the Honky Tonk Angels, you mean these songs that come to you? Is that what you're saying?
it's been funny. People have asked me in the past to describe my songwriting process. It has felt really weird to do so up until this point, but I recently have been listening to Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. And the first chapter of the book, humans are vessels for inspiration. We are basically channeling messages from source. They come through the filter of our life, and then we, basically turn it into art. If you're not open to it, or you can't hear it, or you're not attuned, you won't get it. And so you can put yourself in different states of receptivity or whatever. But there's sometimes I think in artists' life, I don't know how, if they're lucky, I guess, or open or suffering enough that they are somehow tapped into something or happy enough. Sometimes you get a song, hook, lyrics, melody all at once. And sometimes it's just a line, and sometimes it's an entire chorus. Sometimes you're going through something. I remember being really upset with this person that I was with at the time. I got in the car and I wrote this song called You're Not My Dad.
Oh my.
Knew that was the hook. And I was like, what rhymes with dad? When you treat me like a baby, oh, it makes me mad. I'm tired of being scolded because I did it bad. Yeah, it's my life, my experiences, but the inspiration comes from outside of me. I refer to them as the Honky Tonk Angels because I'm pretty Catholic. I think about Saint Cecilia and icons of her with the angels and them giving her inspiration for music. That's kind of how I describe how songs come in. And sometimes I have to work harder for them. I don't know. I think it's also not everyone works like that. And Rick Rubin also is and also you should develop a songwriting practice where you write every day and try to write songs even when you don't get this crazy angel stuff. But I haven't gone there yet. The band admin just keeping this thing going is like so much, you know, I haven't figured out that balance yet for like keeping a writing practice going.
I really love that the honky tonk angels sending ideas to you. I've always thought that in the songwriting process, songwriting is not just in the writing of the song and it's in the inspiration, but it's also in that time when you're not writing songs and life is happening. Because without that, I feel like they'd be very not relatable or not maybe as honest if you didn't have that real life behind it. You know what I mean?
I think that's so true. And I really, really appreciate you saying that. It feels like it takes the pressure off big time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think having a practice is good for developing your art. I can get a little stagnant if I try to write every day. I think that works for some people. And I think it's a good practice for practicing your art. And some good things can come out of it, you know, or it depends on if you're like an actual like writer in Nashville who, you know, has to churn out so much a year. But that's just my thought on the whole writing daily. Sometimes it's good and I feel like even that's not something sustainable for everybody. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on that total tangent.
No, you're giving me permission to continue my behavior. Yes, thank you so much.
Well, but you know, maybe even like the writing daily can be for a 30 days thing or a period of time thing as opposed to a forever till the end of your life thing. You know what I mean?
It's so true. It's amazing how we make things out to be so big rather than breaking it down. And then it just stops us from doing it entirely.
This album was produced by Kai Krogetti, who we've interviewed on this show earlier in season 2. Tell us a little bit about recording the album and what it was like working with Kai.
So we recorded the album in Richmond at our beloved Space Bomb studio and also in Nelson County here close by at White Star Sound. And Kai, we know from obviously like being a local musician here in Charlottesville.
Right.
Band Lord Nelson. And Kai and my guitar player, Kyle, have been close since before I knew either of them. And early on, probably a year into the band, Kyle, my guitar player, sat me down and said, "Where do you want this to go? How far do you want to take this? And depending on your answer, we'll come up with a strategy for doing that. But how serious are you about this?" I was like, "Let's go, baby. Let's go." Kai, I met early on as sort of an advisor on how to run a band. He sat me down and talked to me answered all my questions about starting an LLC and taxes and what's the best way forward with purchasing a vehicle and insurance and all these things. And so Kai has been sensei for me from afar, answering any questions I have about the logistical stuff. But also we've worked with him on all of our recordings. We wanted somebody to come in who we felt like had seen the band grow from the beginning, that we trusted as a musician, basically an external ear, and someone who also could be a stabilizing emotional support in case that was needed as well. Kai is somebody whose energy is just very grounding and very supportive. And so having him with us during the recording process for this album and all of our previous singles and EP was great.
He has a really great album too, and I can see that pairing up really well.
Totally.
Now I want to talk about the cover of the album. The album is inspired by the cover of Waylon and Willie, where the famous song "Mama Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys" originated. Talk a little bit about how that came about, the idea, the artwork.
We had just finished doing a tribute set to Waylon for an event here in Charlottesville called Mock Stars, which is like a Halloween show where bands pretend to be other bands. And so we did a Waylon set, and I like glued a mustache to my face and got a shag haircut, and like we did a bunch of Waylon songs, and Lukenbach, Texas was one of them.
My favorite.
Oh my God, that song is just amazing. So I saw that album cover a lot and I thought it was gorgeous. And I was like, you know what? I think we could do a variant on this that is a little bit more feminine, a little bit more, I don't know, spiritual is the right word. There's definitely some religious symbolism hidden in the flowery tooling on the front.
That's cool.
Yeah. I also want to like jump in here and say that Claire Wall, the painter of the album, is a musician and friend of mine from Asheville, North Carolina. And we We met on the internet like 5 years ago and have become friends. When I asked her if she would do this album cover, every step of the way, we were just kind of like psychically locked in and knew exactly what we wanted this to look like. She'd be like, what should we do for this? And I'd be like, this. And she'd be like, that's exactly what I was thinking. And it was so much work, like such a labor of love. I think she spent 80 hours painting it. All of the little portraits of everyone on the front was just like painstakingly small, detailed painting work. And she just did such an amazing, incredible job. Yeah, I can talk to you more about like the different symbolic elements in it.
Go ahead. I love that kind of stuff.
So we wanted the album to have this leather cover that has flowers from Texas and Virginia. My dad's from Corpus Christi, Texas, even though I didn't spend any time there growing up. We get asked all the time if we are from Texas, or people from Texas who see us play will be like, I thought you were from Texas, or this sounds like home. And so I'd like to think there's a little bit of Texas sound just by dint of my blood or whatever. I don't know. And so there's Texas roses, 3 wild roses on the top, which symbolize like the Trinity. And then on the sides, there's angel trumpets from Texas, which honky tonk angels, angelic transmissions, angelic music. And then on the bottom is a big dogwood. And I love that it's supporting the frame because Virginia is our home. And this album would not have been possible without all of our Virginia fans and their support through like our Kickstarter and coming to our shows over the years. And the dogwood flower blooms around Easter, so it's kind of associated with that too. And then in the corners, the little filigree is actually a monogram of the Virgin Mary.
I like that you took the album, but you didn't copy it. You did things to make it your guys' album. You know, that's really cool. Your song, Gonna Be Mine, it reminds me of a Buck Owens song. It's very swinging and memorable. Can you talk a little bit about writing that song?
So I wrote that song with my friend Maddie Mae Martin, who is a very talented songwriter here and musician. He lives in Remington, Virginia, which is an hour and a half away. But we did songwriting sessions for a long time, once a week on Zoom. I had this hook that I brought to her after driving by a really big house out here around where I live. And I drove by it and I was like, that's gonna be my house someday. That's gonna be my house someday. I was like, Maddie, what can we do with this? And we were talking and we're like, what if we made it about song about this person wanting the finer things in life? What are more things they want? Kind of like building out the dreams of this singer of the song. What's the ideal man? What's he doing? What's he driving? Where's he going? You know, and what's in this house? Like the paved driveway and the wraparound porch. And there's my favorite line of the song. I think everybody's favorite because it's so ridiculous. I'll be a real fancy lady with a white Pekingese, rich enough to purchase anything that I please. What dog breeds are like what dog breeds would a rich lady have? So we put together the song in an hour.
Wow.
It was so good. Like we're like, wow, we did this. This is amazing. And Maddie wrote the melody for the verses. Yeah, it was like, it's been so fun to perform. And over the years of performing it, which I guess is like 2 years now, it's really turned into less of satire for me and more kind of an anthem about being unashamed to kind of say what you want and like go after it.
One thing I love about a lot of your songs is that, you know, a lot of them are like very, especially that one is, it's very simple, but simple is also hard to write, I think. It's also very memorable. Sometimes when, you know, getting those perfect simple lines is a lot harder than what it looks.
I totally agree.
It's a great song. Even in My Dreams, that music and punctuation, it has kind of a Patsy Cline ballad quality to me, where she captured the pop sensibilities of the 50s, yet sticking to true country roots. It reminds me of that. Can you talk about writing that song?
Sure. So that song, like all of my songs, started as a two-step or just like 1 in 5, you know, that's kind of what I do. I wrote it after I woke up from a recurring dream about the one that got away. That song is 100% autobiographical. I'm pretty sure I was crying when I wrote it. Kyle took it and made it into this beautiful kind of like, it was his idea to kind of make it a torch song, like in the style of like Ray Price or Patsy Cline, kind of make it a more almost R&B, like one toe in the R&B sort of sound. That actually may have come about because Porter, our drummer, started doing a 12/8 drum pattern that like And once that happened, the song just like kind of settled into place. And I really love how dreamy it is. It sounds like sort of when I was saying earlier about blue on the album cover, I think that song is like the sound of that concept. You're in a dream and it's so sad and you can't see your way out. It's just like, wow, I can't even get what I want in my dreams. Where can I go from here? There's nowhere to go.
But it's got that honest kind of yearning quality of those songs too.
Yeah, thank you.
The song Drunk After Work Again, I think it's a hit. It's so relatable and has that true honky-tonk feel. Can you talk about that song?
Thank you. That song was another Kyle transformation. I wrote it and it was like, well, I'm gonna get drunk after work again. And Kyle he was like, let's turn it into like a trucker rock loose. And then Porter on drums added some kind of almost like Motown elements to it, like girl group. So it really had this like driving rock quality. The song itself, the lyrics were written when I was working retail. And I did go and buy a bottle of champagne pretty much every day that I worked and drank it by myself over several hours. That was not a good time in my life. Substances and I have 2 songs out, like I Love Smoking and I Honky Tonk Too Hard last night. Unfortunately, that is kind of, not unfortunately, but that's something that I think a lot of country musicians or honky tonkers write about, in part because I don't think they like drink more than other people, but they might be more honest about it, or like it's good material for country music. And I'm not working retail anymore and I'm not drinking a bottle of wine every day, thank God. But yeah, I think the way that our society is structured and the fact that people have to work and still not like work full time and still not make ends meet, it drives people to drink. And it's driving everybody crazy living in this system. So yeah, I don't know. I could get more existential with it, but I feel like that's a good stopping point.
Can you talk about your Chicana influence on your music, in particular the song Esta Herida?
I have been super into Mexican music the last couple of years. My dad is Mexican American. He actually never taught me Spanish, but I basically have been learning very slowly as an adult through music, listening to a bunch of classic mariachi and some Tejano music as well, and border music like Selena and the Texas Tornadoes, and sort of trying to incorporate that sound into honky tonk in a style that we call Mexitonk. And that is not a term I originated. I found that on the Squeezebox Bandits Instagram page out of Fort Worth. And I was like, well, that's a perfect term. So I'm an apostle of Mexitonk. Basically, the song was co-written with my friend Gabby, who lives in Texas. Well, did at the time. And she is Mexican American as well. And she is, anytime I write in Spanish, she's my co-writer. I run all my lyrics by her and she tells me like, we wouldn't put it this way, or I think this is better. This works better with the rhyme, etc. And yeah, that song started as like a very traditional mariachi song that I was writing. And then like a lot of my songs, what would happen if we speed it up? And the boys added some more like norteño elements into it, like having an accordion player come in, Maddie Metcalf, who is a musician around here. And Kyle also played a nylon string guitar that added that sound as well. So yeah, I think it's an expression of, my heritage, but it's also, I think, really important to highlight that cowboy culture, like American cowboy culture, is from Mexico originally. Like the original cowboy was the vaquero, and mariachi and like it is the music of Mexican cowboys. Like country music is our music. Not that I'm calling myself a cowboy. I would never do that. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I love that is in there as well. And it sounded really true to form too. I mean, I'm not by any means anywhere close to an expert. It's very cool. Yeah, I love the accordion in it as well. Is really neat. Your song Trouble. It's a fun song, kind of hopping and memorable. Can you talk a little bit about that song?
Yes. So Trouble was written very early on in the band. It was one of the first songs we played together as a band. And unfortunately, it has applied to many subsequent relationships since that song was written. It's a triumphant breakup song, which I feel like we all need. I think Brooks, when he was doing write-ups for our album, album, describing kind of like what the tracks were all like. He kind of described it as Loretta Lynn's sassiness. I'm just over this, and I'm going to tell you how over it I am. But the song is, if you haven't heard it, the chorus is, trouble, trouble, you are trouble. I could never love a man like you. Turn around and blame me for your trouble. Think I'll leave that trouble thing to you.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's a lot of fun. Now, the last song that I want to talk about is Down and Out. It's probably my favorite one on the album.
Oh, cool.
And
that's awesome.
I'm going to give a couple quotes from it. One was, asking God for mercy, feeling real devout. I'm down and out. And that one was, I don't know why that line just hits me. It's funny. It's cheeky. And the tagline, living isn't easy when you're living without. Can you talk a little bit about that song?
Yes. So it's a not uncommon experience, I'm sure, for us independent musicians to be broke as hell. I think I maybe had, $30 in my bank account when I wrote that song, and that's not uncommon to this day. I guess I like the idea of, the devout line is, I don't like this idea. I was going to say, I like the idea of Jesus playing poker. There's like a line in the song where like, I hope Jesus has an ace up his sleeve because I'm doing things for money you just wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And so there's this element of like really feeling like I am in such need of divine intervention right now. In the interim, I'm just going to keep going because that's all I can do.
Yeah.
And the devout line, I'm praying more than I ever have because I'm so broke.
Yeah.
Pray when I have $1,000 in my bank account.
Right.
I mean, I do, but not as much,
It's less on the line.
Exactly. It's like, when do you get the candles out and be like, please, oh my God.
Ramona, thank you so much for visiting us on the podcast. And I've enjoyed talking to you about Ramona and the Holy Smokes. It's one hell of an album. I hope to hear many more from you and your band.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on, Sarah. I really hope that the sincerity comes across. And I know that everybody in the band who worked on it and all the people, the artists, our engineer and Kai and everybody really put their heart into it. And I hope you can hear that.
Thank you so much for listening to AmericanaMusic.com podcast. Be sure to go to AmericanaMusic.com and find playlists of the Americana artists we've interviewed here. Also, be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform.